All right, welcome everybody to the Prep Poppy podcast, the triple P, the PPP. Your boy loves alliteration, right? He loves alliteration, so that's what we're going with for now, at least. Maybe we'll change it in the future, but I like it. Triple P, the Prep Poppy podcast, right? There was a few other names I tossed around actually. What was one of them? A good one I really liked was like plugged in with Prep Poppy or something like that. But there's already because anytime you do this, you have to like Google around and make sure because there's a bajillion podcasts out there. Make sure you're not taking somebody else's name because that just gets confusing and it's bad for everybody, right? So Prep Poppy's podcast I felt was a safe bet. There aren't too many Prep Poppies out there, right? And if they are, they certainly don't have a podcast like me. So we're going to do that. Just so you guys know, depending on what platform you guys are watching this on, currently we are live recording this on TikTok as well as twitch.tv. Prep Zone Rise on both platforms if you'd like to see that. The recording will be put onto YouTube, and it's very likely that I'll also be putting the audio on a few other platforms as well. However, between those three platforms, you are having a lot of access already, and I am a fan of a video form podcast because people have the option of just listening. I don't know. I'm not a huge person on just the audio form. I like to have the option. Is what I say. I like it when they do both, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So, that being said, that's the podcast. That's what we're trying to do here. Let's get into some topics, right? We are going to touch on, obviously, probably a thing you guys all want to know. Everything about the World War III situation, the situation with Russia, the situation with China. We are going to touch on that a little bit later. That's why on the Twitch stream, I'm going to be having my computer here so we can look up some stuff in real time. I want to probably cover some few other topics first because there's a lot developing in Ukraine right now. And I figure the longer we wait to cover that, the more up to date we're going to be, right? So with that being said, let's jump into some kind of less important topics. Obviously, that being the most important topic of the day today. But that's not the only thing I want to talk about. So I don't have a script or anything for this podcast. I am just kind of free form talking at you. That being said, I am more than likely will have at least scripted questions when I do some interviews on here. So you can kind of expect that. And really, I gotta do more preparation before I invite somebody on and kind of understand what they're about, and then come up with questions that are going to be interesting and drive the conversation, right? So with that being said, let's jump into, again, some less important topics than World War III, and we'll get into those a little bit later. And we're not going to go more than an hour with this, FYI, so keep that in mind. We'll get to there pretty soon. Okay, so the first topic I'd like to actually discuss is, probably going to do pretty well on TikTok, to be honest, but that's not why I'm doing it. Just because it does involve TikTok drama, right? Now, I think that these kind of podcast formats are a pretty good way to kind of discuss those things. And again, you guys know me. I'm going to discuss these things in a pretty respectful way to everybody involved, but I'm not afraid to kind of speak truth either, And the truth of the matter is, if you guys know me, and some of you do, and some of you don't, and I hope you guys take the time to get to know me a little bit better. I definitely put out enough content for you guys to do so. But I don't spend a lot of time, any time really, shit talking other creators or the content they put out, for the most part, provided it's not like attacking me personally, and in which case I feel like I'm invited to respond, right? And that's really the situation with a lot of things. And by all means, I'm not the only person that gets like attacked by other creators. Look at like Homestead Nate. He gets attacked all the time. He's a great dude. And if anybody ever asks, I'm Team Nate. And if you guys don't know him, he's like one of the bigger homesteaders on TikTok. Really good guy. And I respect his content, right? And you gotta love Minion, his little dog too. Minion has his own channel, which I enjoy. But all that being said, I am a larger creator in the emergency preparedness side of TikTok. Obviously, I do a lot of other things. I sing and I dance, and most of it's all connected back to that prepping. But certainly, I believe, and most people I think would agree, that I'm a very different kind of prepping content creator than anybody else. And I think you can also make the case that the majority of the other prepping content creators are very similar to each other. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the content they're putting out necessarily, right? Just that I'm bringing something different and new and other perspectives. And I believe that you should get both of those. You should get, all the different perspectives on this stuff, because you, in your situation, is not the same situation as some of these diehard operator preppers that are out here that, have taken to attacking the Prep Poppies channel and content, right? You're not that person. You may be, but the majority of you aren't. The majority of you are not veterans. The majority of you are probably not even in that good of shape. and have no tactical training, maybe have very little firearms training, very little of any of that. So these people, and yeah, they are educating you in that space with their content, and I appreciate that. And it honestly makes me sad because so many of them I followed before they started coming after me, and I've obviously never did anything to them, right? And I'm not going to name any names or anything here, and I don't think that that's appropriate. And I will say that a lot of this stuff has died off somewhat, but it comes and goes, it flares up, and I'm not definitely not trying to stoke the flames in any way. So if anybody's watching this that takes issue with me and is one of these people, not trying to stoke the flames, I'm just trying to get my thoughts on the matter put out there, just as you have, probably in a more respectful way than some of you have, just because that's who I am as a person, right? That being said, I want to call out one example in particular because this one's actually new to me and it got me thinking about it again. It's not a new video. It was brought to my attention recently. Okay. And again, I'm not going to name any names. And I will say that this particular creator, again, I've been a follower of this person. I respect a lot of their content. I don't agree with everything, but I respect a lot of what they've done and their experience as a prepper, right? So this person, again, I won't give you any names, but, let's just say it's a fatherly figure. Okay. And I will say, any of these people that have, made either direct or indirect slights at my content and me as a person, none of them, a single one of them, first reached out to me to ask questions or to clear up any misunderstanding or issues they have with my content, right? Which tells me that they're not acting as adults. That tells me that they're not actually interested in the things that they say they are. They're just more interested in causing drama and attacking, because the truth is, I am fairly approachable as long as you do it in the right way, in a respectful way, and obviously in the right platform and stuff. I do get slammed with correspondence on all the platforms. Honestly, Instagram messaging, by the way, is probably one of the worst places to contact me. My email, riskyenterprise@gmail.com, is probably the best way to contact me. And then, of course, TikTok messages are pretty good, but I get a lot of them, right? That being said, okay, I don't want to address, I have no intention necessarily of attacking anyone else's content, right? As I said, I think that it's good for people to hear all perspectives. That being said, I believe that I do need to address a few issues that have been brought up commonly. And the video that kind of sparked this was, again, not naming names, but it's a fatherly figure that's been prepping for quite some time. Who, again, I respect as a prepper in a lot of ways. I don't agree with him on everything. Okay. And it's not the one you think, actually. It's not the one you think, probably. It's not anybody's daddy, although that is one of the people, right? That's not who I'm talking about here. But this person, okay, and this has been and not to single anybody out, this has been a criticism of me from a number of people. That's just the one that got me wanting to kind of talk about it a little bit more, okay? So, one of the issues that consistently has been brought up by people who really haven't done their due diligence in researching, like, who I am and why I do the things I do, which I put all that out there. I do put a lot of content out there to head against that they just, it's a lot of content to go through to figure things out maybe. However, this is a stupid issue, okay, in my opinion. But people have taken huge issue with the fact that I've shown you guys a lot of my junk food preps, like, the little Debbie's and the candies and all that kind of fun stuff, right? The feel good, comfort food, that kind of thing, right? In my bunker. And this person and others take extreme issue with that. One, and I'll be honest here, our culture has a fat shaming component. It really does. Two, there's also kind of like a food snobbery that goes on, in my opinion, in the world. So those two things definitely come into play here. And it's not just like in the prepping space, it's just like in general, that's part of our culture these days. And explicitly in the prepping space, there is even more quote unquote fat shaming, right? But that kind of goes back to what I talked about before, is that not everybody, in fact, the majority of you guys are not veterans, you're not operators, and you're probably not in that good a shape, right? Yeah, I think that's true. And also a lot of people may be older or younger or whatever, right? Or disabled, XYZ thing, or, maybe they're just really depressed and have struggles with keeping a healthy lifestyle, whatever, right? Those people deserve saving and deserve help getting prepared. And if you gatekeep this stuff, and that's really what goes on, is some of the, we'll call them the old guard of prepping content, gatekeep this, or try to. They haven't stopped me yet. There's been many attempts. They try to. They don't want me doing this. In addition to all the other people that don't want me doing this for, political reasons, XYZ, explicitly, they don't want me doing things differently. Okay? I don't know if that's an insecurity or what. In my mind, the videos I put out don't have to affect them at all. Okay? And if you're putting out compelling content and you're making your case for your side of this is how you should do things with prepping, you should have no worries about the things I say misleading your followers or whatever, right? If you're doing a good job at what you do, you should have no worries about me pulling your followers away, okay? And leading them down a bad path, as you assume, all right? But second part of that, okay, going back to the foodstuffs, that is not in any way all or the majority of the food I have prepped. Obviously, I'm not an idiot, okay? That is what happens. Okay, so this particular person that again, not singling him out, but just as a reference, it says he's been prepping for 30 years. Great. Cool, bro. However, people also like to make the case that I'm one of these new preppers. I am not at all a new prepper. I have been prepping since I was a teenager, which equates to about 15 years or so of prepping. And again, I have documentation of that being a fact. Okay, I've been in prepper groups. I was pretty big on Facebook prepper groups. I don't want to show you those exact ones because they're like local, but like for years, I've been part of the prepping community and studying this stuff. So to imply that I'm one of these new trendy preppers, although I'd like to be kind of trendy because I'm trying to get those people to be better prepared, and like those are my audience in a lot of ways, to get them from A to B. Well, thank you for the roses. It's just that's my goal. That's the target audience for me. Whereas for some of these other people, their target audience may be some of these operators that are trying to be preppers and stuff, right? And I believe that people who aren't those people deserve saving as well. And I love those people too. Because I love everybody ultimately. I get disappointed in people's behaviors. But you know what I'm saying, right? So that being said, I do have a lot of junk food in my preps, but I also have, chests full of canned fruits, a chest full of canned vegetables, hundreds of pounds of rice, flour, sugar, like everything MRE. I started with the basics, and then I've been prepping for 15 years. I can afford to have a decent sized supply of this other kind of junk food stuff, right? I can afford to do that. And I believe, and you'll never change my mind, that once you have your basics covered, it's a never ending process, right? Prepping. You keep getting better and better and better and improving your situation, improving your outcome. And for me, an outcome where, yeah, the shit hits the fan, but I have all the basics covered, and then I can also have some of the comforts of life and things that I enjoy. That's the goal. It's not about surviving. It's about thriving at a certain point, right? You figure out the survival as best you can. And you're always working on that too. But you start to get time to put into the thriving part. And that's important because you want to make sure that life you're fighting so hard to save is worth living afterwards, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that. And certainly snack foods and candy and whatever else isn't the only way or even a required way, right? It's just a way that can make things a little bit better depending on who you are, right? And especially when it comes to things like mental health and X, Y, Z, the other thing, that can be helpful, okay? And again, don't take this as me railing against people having healthy diets. I'm a vegetarian, first of all. So obviously, vegans have pretty healthy diets. I'm not a vegan, but I respect that. I respect people who live healthy lifestyles and are happy. But I also respect people who eat unhealthy things and are happy. I respect people that do things that make them happy without hurting other people, And the other part of that is that physical fitness. And then we're going to kind of pivot into the second topic that's associated with that, right? So my physical fitness, I'm overweight, right? Basically, I'm overweight. You can look at me, Okay. That being said, am I strong? Yes. Do I have endurance? Yes. You know, I go hiking and stuff, and like I take little breaks because I'm moving a lot of weight, you know, but like, and I go camping and stuff, and I do all kinds of stuff, but like I take little breaks and catch my breath sometimes, but that's about it, you know. I will keep going. I have that will, you know. I get into like this death march mode where my legs will just keep moving, you know, just death march basically, right? That's all well and good. Okay. My fitness could be better and it certainly could be worse, but I'm strong. I know how to fight and I know how to shoot. And I've proven all those things. Okay. At least good enough, right? All that being said, the reason people want you to be so physically fit is because, again, they're trying to turn you into operators, which some of you have no shot in hell of being, right? And I don't have any intention of being. Maybe I have a shot in hell, but I don't have any intention of being an operator, right? Batteries running low on my PC. What the heck? I got it unplugged here. But anyways, I ain't got no intention of becoming an operator. But here's the other part of that. Everybody has, and sorry, I'm just trying to get this plugged in before my battery dies. Everybody has a, I guess, plan, right? You have your survival plan, your situation, what have you. Let's see, which plug? I don't want to unplug the wrong thing. That's fine. I don't need that light. Anyways, we got juice. Okay. So my personal plan is very much, unfortunately, I guess, if it goes wrong, becoming an Alamo situation. You know, I do not intend to run. I probably will fight at that very end, but it ain't going to be a run and fight. And it's going to be with Second Amendment stuff, right? It's going to be quick and it's going to be done. And I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose, the way I see it. So I have my bunker. My bunker is hidden. Okay. The only way that I have to fight is if that bunker is found. And I'll tell you something. If that bunker is found and we're in it, all right, fleeing probably isn't the option. It's probably not. Okay. And that's the simple truth of the matter. I am a bug-in prepper. I tell people to shelter in place wherever possible, but to prepare for that, to make hidden spaces, to make secured spaces, because the best bunkers in the world, guys, the best bunkers in the world have air vents. The strength of a bunker is not in the steel and the concrete. No, it's in the stealth that people don't know about it. Okay. And yeah, people know about mine because I've taken that risk on to share with you as a sacrifice. That being said, most people like that have access to it after shit hits the fan still do not know about it. Meaning like my neighborhood, because anybody like a state over that's watching me on TikTok, good fucking luck getting here and getting to my bunker after shit hits the fan. You will not make it. And like these people also give a lot of bug out advice. Most people who bug out will not make it. However, the people who shelter in place, a larger number of them, if they do it correctly, will make it. All right. That being said, you put me and there's my cat, a physically fit person into a bunker with a set amount of food, my bunker, right? Over that course of time, I will outlive that person in terms of starvation. Bottom line, that is, look, we have body fat for an evolutionary reason or for a religion, whatever you want. We have it for a reason, right? It does a job. And if you have the right knowledge, you can make sure it's doing that job as best as possible for your survival. And what is that knowledge? It's the simple knowledge that when you die of starvation, you die of a heart attack. More than likely, that's how people actually die, because your body does break down muscle and fat when you start to go into starvation mode. But what it can't really get from that is enough glucose for your heart and your brain. So as you start to starve, your thinking gets less clear and your heart starts to mess up, and eventually your heart fails. Okay? Your heart fails eventually. That's how starvation works. However, if you take your food, okay, and you ration out the higher glucose items towards the end, and you can stretch out just some glucose coming in, which is sugar, okay, sugary food, including fruit, but also including candy, you will survive longer if you're fatter. That's the simple truth. As long as your heart's getting the glucose it needs, okay, you will survive longer than somebody who doesn't have body fat. It's just the truth. In that exact situation, that's the situation I am planning for and trying to put myself in. Okay, so that's my thought process with that. That's why the getting more physically fit and spending all that time and energy doing that is less important to me than the other things I'm doing with my time and energy for my prepping, right? So you got to make these decisions. You got to decide how you're going to spend your time, your money, and your efforts with your preps, right? And just because somebody tells you that your physical fitness needs to be the first important thing doesn't mean it's true. And you get to decide that for yourself. And that's like, it goes back to, like I said, have multiple perspectives, okay? Have multiple perspectives and work with what works for you. Is work with what works for you. Whether that's me or not, that's fine. I still know that I'm a good person and I try to entertain you. So it's probably still worth watching if you don't agree with everything I say. But I also think if you don't agree with everything I say, there'll be something you'll come across that's going to help you. And that's how I feel about all these other creators. Even though they attack me, they put out stuff that's helpful, but they also put out stuff that's not, you know? And I'll give you one example of that, just for like, just to give you an example. Okay, let's call it that. The freeze-dried bucket meals. Basically every one of these people that I've noticed that makes videos, attacking my content, if you look into them, they're selling these freeze-dried bucket meals, which I've talked about before, and I really don't recommend except for in very specific situations. And they're pushing them to like entry-level preppers. I don't agree with that. I really don't agree with that. I am of the belief that these buckets you're overspending for your prep when you do that. Maybe you get more convenience, right? Maybe you get more convenience, but you're overspending, bottom line, right? Because you can buy like the freeze-dried material, whatever food you want, yourself in bulk for much cheaper and just literally, you can Mylar. A lot of times it's going to come Mylar in that case. Put it in a bucket with a gamma lid for at least half the price, right? That's the truth of the matter. And the other part of that is that a number of these companies, and a lot of them are reputable, but some of them have been caught not being reputable because they expect people not to open these buckets right away. So they're not advertising what's actually in there, and it's not actually going to last as long as they say. And you don't know exactly what's in there for sure until you open it. So even if you inspect one and that's okay, you're relying on that food to feed yourself and your family, but you're not opening that Mylar. You're not inspecting it to make sure it's not bad or XYZ other thing. You're just trusting this company that's being pushed to you by these other preppers. And that's one thing, right? But here's the other part of it, okay? Those are 25-year shelf life, long-term food options for preppers, okay? A typical can of food, I'm going to say 5 years, 2 to 5 years, we'll say 5 years, okay? Even if you go with 2, unless you have enough canned food to last you 2 years, there's no reason to need anything shelf stable longer than that unless you don't rotate. But you should be rotating your prepper pantry, in which case you could have up to 2 years worth of canned food, and that would stay good and be rotated and always have 2 years worth of canned food on hand for phenomenally cheaper than these buckets. Some of these buckets are $100 to $200, and obviously prices have gone up. But let's say a can of food's roughly $1. 100 cans of beans, 200 cans of beans, even versus this bucket. What's going to give you more calories and more food? And it doesn't have to be beans. You can get a variety. But again, you can also do the freeze-dried stuff yourself if that's what you're looking for. And the other part of it that they don't really even mention is that freeze-dried food really creates a lot of other problems for you. It really does. It creates a hydration issue because canned food comes with hydration already. Water is one of the hardest things to prep in sufficient quantities unless you prepping a production method for clean water. If you're just prepping water storage, it takes a lot of space. It's very heavy, and that's a whole other thing. Like with the big IBC totes and how you're going to move those, and it's better to have smaller ones in my opinion, like a bunch of small containers. But anyways, the dehydrated food requires extra water, which is already a hard thing for you to have enough just to drink and clean of, whereas the canned food comes with it. So that's another trade-off you're taking, and you're spending more. And the fact that these channels claim to be, the most legitimate preppers and gatekeep, but are giving you such bad advice for personal financial gain, I take issue with that when they take issue with me. Otherwise, I'll let you guys figure that shit out about what they do. That's fine. But if you're going to come after me and, the things that I do here, that's the truth. And I don't want anybody overpaying for stuff when they could buy other preps that they need with that money. And also, I don't want anybody to open their buckets a year from now and find out there's just dog shit in there, when you could have packed it yourself and saved money. And maybe you don't have time for that, or maybe you do have that 2 years worth of food and you're looking for 3, 4, 5 years. In that case, go ahead, pick a reputable company and go ahead. But until you're at that point and they don't make this point because they want you to buy these buckets, you shouldn't do that, in my opinion. I have buckets of freeze-dried food. Don't get me wrong. Not those ones. I have like a whole bucket of potatoes, for example, like freeze-dried potatoes, which is cheaper than buying like these little 72-hour buckets, I have a whole bucket of freeze-dried potatoes from Augustin Farms or something. That's a little bit different, It's just one thing. It's the same thing as just buying that in bulk and making your own buckets. I could do that, right? Just buy MREs. So MREs are not a bad thing to have for me. I don't think MREs are the appropriate thing for the majority of your prep as far as your food supply. MREs are good for, let's just say away missions, more or less, when you're not at your base, right? Your shelter in place location. If you need to carry some food with you, it's a great thing to do, right? It's a great thing to have. However, they for the calories you get in a shelter in place situation, making the majority of your food be MREs is quite expensive compared to not, right? There are much cheaper ways. And I will also hazard you just as a little tip. And honestly, we should probably look at some of the Russia situation here soon. Let's say like probably about 11:30 Eastern time we'll end it here. So we've got like half an hour or so. So we got a lot of time. But with the MREs, those heating packs that come with them, honestly, guys, just plan on those not working. You might get lucky, but the ones we get, especially now with COVID and everything, like Sopaco and some of these companies, the food's fine, but it's older and the heating packs, they weren't reliable always to begin with. The heating packs probably aren't going to work. So you're probably going to want to, you can eat it cold depending on what it is. I think maybe all of them. I think maybe all of them you can, but you don't want to, right? So you can just boil those the things that come in them in a pot of water, if the heating pack doesn't work, FYI. Yeah, so plan to grow and raise, and that's another thing I'm doing. So yeah, I have all that snack food and stuff, right? But I also have all the the healthy basics. I have way more of that than I do of the junk food. But I'm also working on the growing stuff. That's something I've gotten into more and more. I've always had like seeds around, but now like I'm doing it heavily. I'm building the underground renewably powered when needed after shit's the fan greenhouse area in the basement, and then it's also going to be a big, basically a small farm. A little bit. Hopefully, I feel like a garden produces less food than what I'm going for with this, if that makes sense. Because also I'm trying to grow as much food as possible to give out to others when times are tough, right? To family members and stuff that weren't prepared. And also for me to preserve, and X, Y, Z other reason. But I'm of the mind that if you already have plants started at all times, 365, using your indoor stuff, you're way better off. You also, what works and what doesn't, and you're able to afford to make mistakes now, right? That's a lot of the stuff. Like that's another thing that people attack me on, is that I do make mistakes sometimes. Obviously everybody does. When that does happen, if sometimes people think I made a mistake when I didn't, but sometimes they think I did and I did. And so maybe somebody will comment on a video or something. And if it's really bad, I may delete the video. But if it's just like, oh, there's a little clarification needed, I'll pin their comment even, at the top of the comments. So anybody who needs to hear that will hear it. Or sometimes I'll even write a comment and pin my own if I need to clear something up. But then most of the time, people are just kind of misunderstanding something when they say that about me, or like they, some of the safety concerns. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to do kind of experimental stuff or trying to figure some stuff out or anything that's like slightly more dangerous, you damn well better do it now while there's a hospital 5 minutes away before shit hits the fan. So a lot of the stuff I've done that people have been like, it's because I know that help isn't far away now, and I don't want to be having to try this shit after shit hits the fan when help's never coming again, if I needed it, right? That being said, always be careful. Always know that you might not see on a short video all the safety precautions that are being taken. You know, like with a lot of the fire stuff, I have fire extinguishers fucking everywhere when I'm doing, like, multiple fire extinguishers fucking everywhere when I'm doing those videos. The fire department is right around the corner from my house. But so is the sheriff's department, by the way. You know, and I also have, carbon monoxide detectors where needed. Like, I have all these safety things, and I do tell you guys to have those things, but you might not pick up on that on every single piece of content you see, But then again, it just comes back to common sense. And the other part of that is there's a lot of things that I do here, so you don't have to, definitely. Like, especially with some like the plant stuff. And that's probably the last topic I want to get on because I caught a lot of hate for that. The mystery root. If you guys remember the mystery root, there may be a playlist dedicated to it, but there's certainly videos out there if you go back. Some of them are probably on my YouTube. So the mystery root, it was a root that I ate a small amount of and I got sick. Basically, I found it in my backyard. Right? Caught a lot of hate from that, from people who honestly should fucking know better if they actually watched the content around that, right? I like to learn from nature, and I like to learn from primitive skills, and I like to take what I learned there and mix them with kind of some modern stuff, right? That's kind of like my approach to some of this learning with the gardening and the foraging and all that stuff, is learn what ancient people, native peoples have done, learn from that, learn from experimenting and stuff too myself, and then obviously research and stuff, the modern stuff, right? But the way that edible plant identification has always been tested is what I did, This is the method if you need it re-explained. And I had a video like right before I had eaten it where I went through all these steps. I had several videos talking about this. But you come across a plant in the bush that you think you're hungry and you think this is edible. This is what you do, okay? First thing you do is you're going to want to look at it, think about any poisonous plants you may already know. You're really you don't need to identify what it is first. You need to identify what it isn't. Make sure it doesn't line up with anything you know to be toxic, right? Or even look suspicious to be one of those things, okay? That's the first step. Second step, okay? You're going to take some, all right? And you're going to rub it on your skin. Some people do the back of their hand, inside of their wrist. If it's like a leaf or something, break it so you're getting that juice, but just get a little bit of the whole plant in contact with the small spot of your skin, okay? And then you step back and you wait at least 15 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe longer, okay? You wait a while. Do you have any reaction? If you have a reaction, walk away. Walk away. If you don't have any reaction, okay? And by the way, you can also just smell it as you're doing this. I didn't include that as its own step, but use your nose, eyes, nose, okay? And then your touch, right? No reaction. So then, okay, what you're going to do, again, I would say at each step of the way, as you take a new piece, make sure you're smelling, okay? Now, since you had no reaction to your skin, next thing you're going to do is repeat the process, but on your lips, okay? On your lips. I will say if you are smelling or eventually tasting, the taste of almonds is very bad. Don't eat that. Typically, strong bitter flavors are bad, okay? Some things are bitter that are okay to eat, but some things aren't. So keep that in mind. And then again, typically sweet is a good sign, but not a guarantee. I'll tell you that too. Sweet is a good sign, but not a guarantee. People say sweet, if it's sweet, it's okay to eat. That's not true, but it is a good sign, right? So you're rubbing it on your lips next. Now, if you experience tingling, and you're going to wait again 15 minutes, an hour or longer, you're feeling any tingling, stinging, burning, any irritation, walk away from that plant. You don't need that, okay? But provided it passed that test, okay? Provided it passed that test. Now you should be good to go ahead and take a small bite, okay? Take a small nibble of it, all right? Chew it up in your mouth, chew it up. Let it sit in your mouth for a couple minutes, right? Then I would say spit it out, okay? And then again, go through another waiting period, all right? You may want to wait a little bit longer for this one, but go through another waiting period, okay? Following that, the next thing you're going to want to do, if it passes all those tests, is you're going to want to go ahead and actually ingest some of this plant, all right? You're going to take 1 or 2 bites, chew it up well, okay? Small bites, and swallow it. And then again, step away for a while. This time, step away for 24 to 48 hours. Okay? Make sure you have no ill effect. I also recommend that if you're doing these kind of tests, you're not eating a whole lot of other stuff, especially stuff you don't know what it is or it could make you sick. If it's something like you know for a fact you're not going to get sick and you got to eat, that's fine. Don't take any other food risk while you're doing this test because it's going to invalidate your results. There might be something that it's safe to do that because if you get sick, you're not going to eat this plant, but you may miss out on a potentially actually edible plant because you thought you got sick from that when you got sick from something else. But then you eat a couple bites and you just wait to see if you get sick. All right. That's where my test failed of this plant. It passed all those other tests. But on that final test where I eat a small amount, and during that waiting period, a few hours later, I did vomit from both ends, a good amount. Okay. And at which point I didn't die. I didn't go to the hospital. Nothing, because I ate a small amount and I did all those other tests, which tell me that it's not quite so toxic, right? And so what we've decided that it is, and we don't know for sure, and that's the other part of this, is we were doing this in winter, meaning it was a root, and there was a little bit of brown stem sticking out of the ground. That was it. So whatever this plant looked like before winter, we had no idea. And obviously, you want to know what a green part of all seasons of a plant looks like before you eat it, but you're not going to have that opportunity if you're surviving. If you're lost in the wilderness and it is winter and you need to find food, you got to do what I did. And so I did it for you so you don't have to, right? Like, I did it for you so you don't have to. But what we decided that it was more than likely, it was a young pokeweed plant, okay? Which pokeweed is consumed both as food and as traditional medicine with the Native Americans. What that medicine does is what it did to me. It makes you shit and vomit. It's like Epicac, kind of. You know what I mean? If you need a good flush out, that's what the natives would use the medicine for. Okay. And pokeweed grows all over. It's very popular. If you look it up, you'll recognize it. It's got those like little red berries and it's green leaves. But certain times of year, if you process them right, people eat the leaves and they make a poke salad, and apparently it's good, and they don't get sick. But you have to do it at the exact right time before those leaves are contaminated with the toxin. And I forget what the toxin is. But again, it's in moderate doses, especially in small doses. It's medicinal in that it's going to flush you out. Okay. Which was not my intention. I was not looking for a flush out. I did not enjoy it. Okay. I was looking for a sweet, and it tasted like a sweet carrot, by the way. Okay. But it didn't. And again, I know what like poison hemlock looks like, and I know what XYZ, other poisonous plants around here look like. And I knew it wasn't those. And I spent a long time trying to research this, asking TikTok, and you can look, I have videos be like, hey, you guys, if you're herbalist or whatever, can you help me figure out what this is? And then I showed doing some of the testing and then waiting, and I waited longer than those 15 minutes. Like I waited like over a day putting the skin to anything else. Right. And that's all documented, but yet still I got a lot of hate for that. But I maintain to this day that what I did was not only correct, and it was a great bit of content. But you really, really, really got to kind of come at it knowing all of what I just told you, I guess. And not everybody does. I understand that, but I did put it out there. So it's on people's own volition to go beyond a 1-minute video, if they have concerns. If they don't have concerns, that's fine. But for stuff that's important, it's out there. It was out there at the time. It's out there now. And especially if somebody's going to go out through the trouble of making attack videos about it, and like a lot of them, and riling people up, you probably should do that diligence, is what I'll say. But that being said, okay, let's go ahead, actually, and we're going to hop on some news feed here. And if you're watching on Twitch, you can see this, my computer screen. Okay. Let's see. Let me check the Twitch strat. Why is the screen so scuffed? Well, now people are saying it's good. I don't know. I can only see the Twitch stat when I pull up Twitch screen. All right, so let's see here. We're on the world news section first here. Okay. Well, right here, Bloomberg's talking about it's like their latest update feed about the invasion. So let's just see. Oh, wait. You want me to subscribe? No. Hold on, watch. If you guys are watching on Twitch, you're gonna like this. Assuming this is a Java pop-up, I need to hit right click, and this is a great tip. If you ever get those pop-ups on news articles that tell you can't read unless you subscribe, you can just turn those off. But so you right click on it, you hit inspect, and that brings up the console basically for Chrome. This is for Chrome. I use Brave, which actually pays me to use it. It pays you to use it too in crypto, and it's more secure and stuff. But it's based on Chromium, so everything Chrome works within it. But anyways, so then you go to the settings, I believe, the little gear symbol at the top right. And again, you guys can see this happening on Twitch. And then you want to hit disable JavaScript. Okay, and once you hit that, you refresh it. And then as you can see, if you're watching on Twitch, that pop-up went away. It doesn't always work. Sometimes if it's not a simple Java pop-up, which most of the time it is, it doesn't work. Let's try to refresh this again. Yeah, I think Bloomberg's not going to let us do it, but we can get the first part of it at least. We can get rid of the pop-up. We're just not going to get the whole article. So let me do that again real quick. Blip, blip, blip. Okay, so anyways, let's just, I can talk about it before we get some of the news happening. So obviously we know that there was a shelling this morning in Ukraine. Again, I'll say allegedly, but it was by the Russian-backed separatists, which people are trying to say that it was the Russian-backed separatists, not Russia. They did it on their own. What does Russian-backed mean? Man, screw you, Bloomberg, by the way. We're going to go somewhere else. Russia-backed means not on your own. Where did they get artillery from? Russia, because they have their backing. And hell, you know what else? Where'd they get their instructions from? The Kremlin to do this, okay? And guys, these are not just Ukrainians who on their own decided they want to be Russian separatists. They're not. They're not. Guys, read a book. Read a book about clandestine operations and how these things actually work. Because I'll tell you, I have. And if you haven't, there's a good chance I understand what's going on a little bit better. And let me tell you, okay? So explicitly, when it comes to things like this, you get your agents in there, all right? And what they do is basically create guerrilla fighters, a guerrilla movement within a country they're trying to destabilize. And the way they do it is really insidious, and they really make people either have no choice or make it think like it's their idea. You know, these are the best spies in the world doing this stuff, the best operators in the world doing this stuff. But it's more than just like what you might think, like just convincing people. Here's an example. This is straight out of the CIA handbook, which I've read on this kind of clandestine stuff, right? So what they do, if somebody is important to the movement that they're trying to create, the guerrilla movement or the resistance against the regime, but not willing to join your little guerrilla movement, your forced revolution by another foreign nation, what you do is you get another person, okay, that's not the operator, to bring that person to one of their areas, one of their meetings or whatever, right? And then during that, pictures are taken of this person being there, right? And then they go and tell this person, look, if they're like on the fence or whatever about joining up with their cause, they say, hey, we got your pictures. Doesn't matter if you actually support us or not. The regime is going to get these pictures and they're going to think you are. Okay. So at this point, you're with us. Not a great option after that. Okay. That's one of the things they do. That's just one. And obviously, like, you can pick people's kids up from school and they're going to do whatever you say. Like, pick them up and drop them back off at home safely with a note. They're going to do what you say. Okay. And that kind of shit happens all over in this country and abroad. All right. Guarantee you. I mean, if you look back, I can't remember any of the names, but there was a judge that her house got shot up, you know? Then there was a lot of sketchy shit with that. Like, figure out that story. She wasn't home. Her family was. And they got, you know, it was sketch. Like, there was a big conspiracy around that kind of got slept on. But we're not going to get into that. So Biden is saying that there's every indication that Russia will attack Ukraine within the next several days. Got to agree with the guy there. Don't agree with him often. Okay. They kind of already did today, though. They really did today. But that being said, they did. And it was Russian-backed separatist, but those are just like a guerrilla militia. It's a Russian militia, basically, instead of the Russian regular army. All right. The regular army is what's massing around the border, and the separatists are guerrilla fighters that were, you might as well think of them as a branch of the Russian military, okay? Because they were created by whatever, the modern equivalent of the KGB, which is basically the same. I mean, Vlad is a KGB guy from back in the day, first of all, okay? They were created and set forth and supplied by Russia as, you could think of them as a militia in another country, if you want to, okay? That's essentially what they are. But they do take direction from Moscow. 1,000% they do. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? You know? And some people have even said or claimed that Ukraine carried out this attack in order to provoke war and that Ukraine is attacking Russia. Guys, that is the biggest line of Russian propaganda I've ever heard. And I am shocked and disappointed that people aren't questioning that more. Okay? Whatever happens with this, whoever's fault it is, all right, whoever the aggressor is bad for Ukraine. Ukraine is fucked, all right? Ukraine is in the middle of something way bigger than Ukraine, and they are the battlefield. Do you think Iraq worked out well for the Iraqis? You know, it didn't. It didn't. It's going to destroy that country, the war. Whoever wins or loses, whoever was the aggressor, whoever started it, it's going to destroy that country. And that's not, I'll tell you, that's not what the government of Ukraine would like. Okay? That's why they've been downplaying so much. They don't want war in Ukraine. They want to be allowed to exist and to make money and have people pay them taxes. And so they can keep having power and be rich. Because I'll tell you, whoever the leadership is in Ukraine, they won't be the leadership after the war fucks them. Okay? No matter what. Russia, if they do this, will take good chunks of the Ukraine, including the capital. That's why we've moved our embassy to the far side of the country recently, out of Kiev. Okay? We did that because we anticipate heavy damages, casualties, and potentially Russia taking the whole fucking place. Okay? We do. That's why we got Americans out of there. And I almost disagree with that as far as American troops. I think that having them there, if we truly are here to protect Ukraine's security and protect them from being invaded, we withdrew those troops so that Russia would not accidentally hurt our troops, forcing our hand into attacking them back, right? That makes sense on the surface. However, if you consider the possibility that Russia probably doesn't want that to happen in response to that, they may hold off on the whole thing if we're standing in the way. And isn't that our job? Isn't that the propaganda that we put out? That we are the world police and we're going to stand in the way, physically put ourselves between you and the bad guys to protect the world, to protect freedom and democracy all over the world. That's the propaganda, right? And maybe, truly, that would work. Maybe. Just the presence and the risk of retaliation for Americans, right? I don't want to lose any troops. My hope with that is that they wouldn't attack because of that, right? Okay? But pulling them out almost seems to me like an invitation, right? An invitation. And also seems to me to speak to the fact that he kills Ukrainians, Vlad kills Ukrainians. We don't care. We're not going to respond. That's why you don't kill Americans. We will respond. And I'm not taking issue with like that part of the thinking. Just that maybe it made things worse to pull them out. Maybe, right? Okay. It may have been a deterrent. I don't know. But so I really just think that the president and the administration as a whole, including the military leadership, and the clandestine leadership all across the board is failing us here. I really do. I also believe that another administration of a different color tie would also be failing us here. Okay? Because I also know that, you know, across the board, our government's failing us, right? Right? They withdrew the National Guard troops that were training the Ukrainians. Unless they put them back recently, they did actually withdraw those, to answer your question. But again, there is a lot of misinformation out there. For example, Russia claimed that they pulled their troops back yesterday, when actually they added more. And they added like 7,000 more troops when they said they were pulling them back. Like, and there's like satellite pictures and like, yeah, our government lies a lot. But to me, most of the facts and like stuff that they've put out recently about this is kind of fleshed out in a lot of ways. In terms of like, they're showing like satellite pictures and you see on TikTok videos, like people on the ground filming this stuff. You know, it's crazy. And here, you know what? Speaking of that, I want to call somebody else, not directly out. I'll just say, to go back to the drama from before, there is a lot of misinformation out there. And some of these preppers that have attacked me are pushing some of that, for sure. Namely, and I'll let you figure out who posted this. Just that, I'll give you a clue. There's geography in the name. And this is some person who actually I used to be friends with, but then they flipped on me, right? There's a video of what looks like 2 nuclear bombs going off in Ukraine. If you've seen that video, it's like nighttime, they're driving, and there's 2 mushroom clouds, okay? People are posting that without context, or I almost posted that video until I did like 2 seconds of research into what was actually going on, okay? Because I don't try to scare people with false news. Like, yeah, that all happened. It was in the Ukraine. It wasn't nukes. It was actually weapon depots. But the thing that they left out, that was like over a year ago that video was taken. It's not happening right now, okay? It's not an escalation of the right now, all right? A couple weapon depots exploded in Ukraine a while ago. And then that video is surfacing now, and people who you should, you expect to be able to trust with this stuff aren't clarifying that with that. And I think that it's a cool video. I mean, it's not cool, but like it's interesting to watch, right? To these big mushroom clouds and stuff, but like it just seems dishonest to me, like clickbaity and making people panic about not what's actually happening right now. There's probably reasons to be upset and panicked or whatever, but don't panic. Only panic a little bit, as we say. If you're gonna panic, stay calm, stay prepared. But yeah, there's a lot of misinformation going on, okay? And I try to suss out what's actually going on and give you my take on it. Am I always going to get it right? No. But honestly, guys, I don't get very firm on things that I feel like I'm not 100% on. You know what I mean? Because I'll say things like, I don't have a crystal ball, but it looks like this. The evidence speaks that this is what is more than likely to happen. And for me, the evidence of the troops around Ukraine is overwhelming. From the satellite pictures to the boots on the ground video to XYZ other thing to the motivations, what do they say? Motive means an opportunity. It all lines up for me, the things that there's definitely a lot of propaganda and fluffery coming out of the US and NATO for sure. And a lot of language that's garbage basically around it. That being said, a lot of the actual intelligence that we're being provided, I find to be credible in terms of the troops being there. And also in terms of, I believe that the Russian-backed separatists are the ones who shelled that nursery. And I also understand that the separatists control very heavily where these shells came from. And that it's very unlikely that the US or Ukraine or NATO perpetrated this attack against the nursery school, in my view. It would be too hard for them to get that deep into enemy-controlled territory with mortars, or I don't know if it was mortars or some kind of bigger artillery or what, and launch those without being detected and without being proven to be that kind of false flag, right? At the same time, literally the same day, Russia comes out and says that they found these mass graves that were allegedly killed by aggressive Ukrainian aggression or whatever, right? Literally the same day, what I think happened is that is the Russian false flag, an attempt at one that honestly got kind of screwed up, that didn't go exactly to plan, because, guys, we are fighting them. Like in the world, like we're having a propaganda war for sure. Okay. But we're also just fighting their propaganda with the truth, is the way you fight propaganda sometimes. Even if your side doesn't always tell the truth, you're fighting a falsehood with the truth. So then you can then put your lie out later. Basically, that's what I see happening a lot with some of this stuff. And the truth is, Russia is doing this. Sure, Javante, why don't you come on for a little bit? Wait, do it again. Do it again. It went away, if you can. But yeah, Javante the reporter, Javante Coker News 1, I think is your alt, or I'm not sure which one is which, but those are the 2 accounts. He covers a lot of this stuff. If you do it again, man, you can come on for a little bit. I don't think I can tell you, but it popped up and then I didn't hit accept quick enough. Let's see. Let me turn it off and back on. Blah, 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 blah. Honestly, we're getting close to the end, but all right, it says it's on. Um, yeah, I don't have the ability just to pick you. You have to do it again. But anyways, maybe he'll get in here. Maybe not. I don't know what you got going on, dude. But U.S. says war appears imminent after shelling on Ukraine front lines 7 minutes ago by Reuters. There are pictures. Yeah, guys. I mean, hold on. I'll show you this. I'll show you on TikTok too later, but just so you're not watching on Twitch. You see that? That's the nursery school, and that's the hole in the wall. Okay, you guys can see that. You get a better view on the Twitch stream though, but just so you guys get a little peek. But yeah, this is my first time seeing it. My first time seeing it, so I'm just kind of looking at it and seeing what I can see. You know, if there's anything useful, it probably isn't. It's just sad. But yeah, it's a hole in the wall, probably 3 or 4 feet wide, a little uneven shaped. Bricks all over the floor, kids' toys everywhere. No children were injured in this attack. A couple of the teachers got concussions, assuming they got blasted back, but there were no serious injuries to my understanding in this particular attack, although there are reports of rail stations and infrastructure being hit as well, which more than likely that's what this was aimed for, guys, was some kind of infrastructure, I believe, and their aim just sucked, and that happens with artillery and mortars sometimes, especially with less trained people like these separatists, even though they've been trained quite a bit by Russia. And who knows, the person who took the shot may have been a Russian operative directly. Who knows? But I think they hit this nursery school kind of by accident. I'd be curious to see if I can find an address. Let's see. Or something in Ukraine. I doubt it will tell me, and then kind of see what's around there on Google Maps. So if anybody does find the address, if I can't find it right now, we can look into that later, or do that on your own. Figure out where exactly this place is and look around it. Like look within like, I don't know, a mile around it or whatever, and see, is there anything that you would think would be an important target around that nursery school? And I would hazard a guess probably. And that aim with these things isn't always perfect. That's an EMP shield on the back of my laptop here. It's not, there's 2 external hard drives in here, okay, wired in, and I had to put something on here to hold them in place anyways, so I figured I might as well make it conductive and have several layers and stuff, and it'll make a simple little EMP shield, which may not work depending on the strength of an EMP. It's better than nothing, and I had to get these put on here somehow anyway, so it doesn't look great, but it works. But yeah, so I'm just reading this article here. If you're watching on Twitch, you can see it with me. Let's see. I'm going to read to U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday said that there is now every indication Russia was planning to invade Ukraine, including signs Moscow was carrying out a false flag operation to justify it after Ukrainian forces and pro-Moscow rebels traded fire. Moscow, for its part, ejected the 2 officials from the U.S. Embassy and released a strongly worded letter accusing Washington of ignoring its security demands. It threatened unspecified military technical measures. Guys, this is important. Let me read that for you again. Okay? Moscow, and this is from Reuters, it's 7 minutes old. Moscow, for its part, ejected the number 2 official, okay? So the second in command of our embassy in Moscow from the embassy, okay? Kicked him out of the country, all right? And they sent a strongly worded letter accusing us and threatening us with military technical measures. Early morning exchanges of fire between Ukraine and pro-Russian separatists, again, they're Russian-backed separatists, raised alarm, with Western officials who have long warned that Moscow could try to create a context for invasion, saying they believe such a scenario is now unfolding, basically. We have reason to believe they are engaged in a false flag operations to have an excuse to go in. Every indication we have is that they're prepared to go into Ukraine and attack Ukraine. President Biden told reporters as he left the White House. First of all, where he going, Joe? Are you going? You going to your bunker? Are you going to Camp David or some shit? Mount Weather? Where you going, Joe? Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that shit. When the politicians start leaving Washington, you're in trouble. All right? Pay attention. I don't know how you figure that out in real time all the time, but if you come across that, just be mindful, okay? All right, so Biden ordered Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to change his travel plans at the last minute to speak at the UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine. The evidence on the ground is that Russia is moving towards an imminent invasion. This is a crucial moment, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas Greenfield told reporters. Russia denies planning to invade its neighbor and said this week it's pulling back some of its more than 100,000 troops. It's over 150 guys that has massed near the frontier or the border. Washington says Russia is not withdrawing, but in fact sending more. I believe that. Okay? Okay? We see them fly in more combat and support aircraft. We see them sharpen their readiness in the Black Sea. They have 40-some plus ships in the Black Sea, right? And all over the world, too. We're having issues, okay? And we also see them stocking up blood supplies on the front, okay? That shit goes bad. You don't do that for drills. You don't. They're ready for war, okay? And I'll tell you, they don't need that many troops just to take Ukraine either. They don't. Hell, they could take Ukraine mostly by air if it was just Ukraine, but it ain't gonna be. And that's going to be the first things you're going to see. I've told you guys this before. First things you're going to see is more than likely some kind of like longer range mortars artillery fire. And then as well, once things are actually hot, from aircraft and drone. Why I say hot is because that's going to be responded to differently. You get artillery or mortared, you're hit. But if somebody comes and has a plane flying over you with a Russian pilot in it, you're shooting down that plane. And then at which point you've killed a Russian soldier back. And that is an escalation from a one-sided attack to a response, right? But you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of air fights between NATO, US, drones, everything everything coming to bear that we can bear, maybe short of nuclear. I got to believe that there will be a more traditional conflict, at least prior to nukes flying. I don't think nukes will fly at the start. That being said, somebody may get frisky on either side and go for a first strike tactical kind of situation and hope that the response is either tactical and not all out, or they don't respond at all. I think that's very foolish, but I allow for the possibility of that happening, right? And that could set off a chain of events that could lead to all of them flying. But at least at first, I think there will be a lot of conventional warfare because everybody involved are going to do everything they kind of can to avoid setting off the end of the world completely. Okay? With nukes, like just leveling, turning the whole world into glass. They're trying to avoid that a little bit, I think, still. And that's what we're going to see. So we're going to see a lot of air combat. That's going to come before. So typically with military operations like this, and again, I'm not in the military, but I do study, some tactics and strategy and stuff like that. You soften your target first with artillery and with air. And then you're going to send in your heavy equipment, basically, your tanks. And, we got MRAPs and coming in behind, but, you're moving the tanks in. Also your infantry and things like that. You're probably going to see a lot of paratrooper action happening here, so they can kind of deploy all over. I would be very surprised, actually, not to see maybe even some high altitude jumps deployments happening on both sides, just to help them get in and not get shot down, which those are cool. You're basically a paratrooper from space, almost space, not actually space, but like really, really high up. So it's harder to shoot you down. And then you're following you're very hard to see or to hit until you get very close to the ground. And then you deploy and you land safely. That's a high altitude jump. But anyways, we're going to see stuff like that happening, I think, before we would see other things. However, caveat with all that, there are other very, very destructive, and honestly, I'll call them WMDs because that's what they are, things that we may see quickly as an attempt to try to get by with something that's not a nuke, that's almost just as destructive, such as certain cyber attacks could have a similar destructive impact on, like in terms of casualties overall, just a little bit slower to take place. EMPs as well, biological, chemical issues, all these things you may not get absolutely nuked in response to. I don't think that the Geneva Convention and a lot of the rules of war are going to apply in this conflict, because in World War, it's a lot about what the other side does, but also it's just about winning. And that's the thing we all need to get on board with as Americans or non-Russians, is our side needs to win. At this point, however we feel about how we got here, or how we shouldn't have gotten here, or mistakes that were made, at this point, whatever it looks like, whether a win is to pull back and be fine, or to go in balls to the wall, I don't know. I don't know how we win at this point. It kind of feels like we're in a no-win situation, but we all need to be on Team America at least a little bit, and not on Team Russia. Okay? And that's something I've made some videos about today already, but Vladimir Putin is no better. Okay, Vladimir Putin is worse than Joe Biden. I'll go that far. All right, Vladimir Putin is an old KGB guy. He's been president for way longer than he has any right to be. He assassinates his political rivals, That being said, could you say a lot of that shit about a lot of politicians in America? Similar? Yeah, you could. But because you don't like the administration, you don't like the way the government behaves or what we do militarily around the world, doesn't mean that you should flip sides to Russia, because they are the OG at this. Who fucked up the Middle East before us? It was Russia. You know who was before them, actually? It was England. And England is responsible for the turmoil in the Middle East. Just to be clear, the UK, the old British Empire, is the reason the Middle East is fucked up. Because they drew a map based on nothing, and it fucked everything up, right? Maybe it would be fucked up on its own. Otherwise, I can't see an alternate universe here. But the first thing to fuck it up really was the English. But then after that, it was the Russians. And then we, not learning from their mistakes, basically did the exact same thing. Which, funny enough, check this out. The Russian stuff in Afghanistan happened right at the end of the fall of the Soviet Union. So shortly after they were out of Afghanistan, relatively speaking, for the whole history of the Union, they fell. And let me tell you something. The United States just recently withdrew from Afghanistan. And it's kind of looking a lot like we're going to fall. And I've, it's kind of started to study even more like the collapse of the Soviet Union to kind of get some context. And the biggest thing that was a nail in the coffin for the Soviet Union, and this is something that I could see as a possibility some ways, but we're not there yet, is that the various states that made up the Soviet Union, basically, which are places like Ukraine and Belarus and Kazakhstan and these other places, they basically seceded from the Soviet Union all at once. And the Union was very weak at the time, and they didn't stop them from doing that. They didn't have a civil war about it. It was almost like weirdly amicable. I don't really understand. I wasn't there how that played out, but that's kind of like the mechanism of the fall as it happened, what it looked like. Could you see a large group of states splitting from the federal government? Possibly in the United States, depending on what, like if the federal government no longer has the ability to keep them from seceding, I think a lot of states probably would. I think a lot of voters in states would vote on such a thing, and they would at this point, and to just let their state, still work with all the other states and everything, but not be beholden to the federal government. I think a lot of states would do that at this point. States like Florida, Texas, just to give you a couple examples, probably like Montana and a lot of states, certainly. And they're all over though, like geographically all over. So it's not like a North and South civil war. It's just like all around you. Right. And I don't think it doesn't benefit anybody if that happens, if there's fighting about it. Like, I'll tell you what, if my state decides to secede from the Union along with a bunch of other states, I'm not going to side with the federal government, okay? Because I'll tell you one thing, this is the way I look at it, okay? I am a citizen of my state, and my state participates in this greater union, okay? But what that means to me is while I'm also a citizen of this greater union, first and foremost, I am a citizen of my state. That's the way I view it, okay? Not everybody does, and I'm not saying that's the way the Constitution or the law is, kind of isn't. I mean, it isn't, but it in some ways it is, because states are also kind of pre-autonomous or in certain ways. But this is my home. This is where I've always lived. I'm going to side with my country. I'm also going to side with my state in that situation. And I ain't fighting for the federal government against my state. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that much right now. I hope neither would you. They don't deserve you're fighting for them against the states, because maybe the states don't either. But I'd rather worry about a smaller pond to fix than this big fucked up pond. You know what I mean? Everybody's state is a fucked up smaller pond, but it's less fucked up than the big pond, right? So you're going to be a small fish in an ocean, okay? Or you want to be a small fish in a pond or a lake, right? You have more ability. Your voice is louder in a smaller environment to make change. Truly, you do. Small community environment, your voice is louder. A county, your voice is loud. A state, your voice is less loud than a county, but more loud than at the national stage. And at the national stage, your voice is less loud globally, but you know what I mean? Like as an individual, not as like an elite person. The more people speaking, the less loud you're able to be. So the bigger groups we have, the less the individual matters in terms of decision making in a way. Like it gets divided. There's only so much to be made and it gets divided up as a pie, right? So being in a smaller government or smaller geography, as long as we still can maintain, some semblance, that might happen. Is what I'm not saying that this is what should happen with the states. I'm saying if it did happen, that's how I would respond is, positively to not supporting the federal government and supporting my home. But I'm not going out. I have nothing against any other state. I'm not going to go to war with some other state. I was going to defend my home if need be. That's it. That's it in that situation. But I also can see some states seceding from the union if things start to fall apart, and like individual states somehow maintaining their own version of order-ish compared to the rest of the country, being a likelihood. Because states do have national guards. States are set up to be a continuation of government. They have their own continuation of government plans. You know what I mean? Like if there's no contact with the federal government, or they decide not to have contact or support from them, they have plans, like these disaster plans, that some of them may work. And so there may be functional state borders, I guess is what I'm saying, and functional state governments that survive longer than the federal government, maybe not even forever, but during a collapse situation, you probably almost certainly will see that before the states themselves collapse, is what I'm saying. Okay, so that's something to expect, and that's just a lesson we can take from the Soviet Union's collapse as far as what it actually looked like in the mechanism. But that being said, we have gone over an hour for the podcast, and I think we're going to actually cut it here. I do appreciate everybody watching here on whatever platform you're watching on. Just to remind everybody, we are live on TikTok right now, and this is how we're definitely going to do it. We might add to it, but we're not going to take away. We're live on TikTok right now. We're live on twitch.tv, Prep Zone Rise. Same name on all these platforms. We're going to post this video on YouTube, and very possibly I'm going to look at the recording. I may put some of it on just TikTok, little TikTok clips, something like that. Maybe put some on Instagram, whatever. So that's where you can find it. You can obviously find my TikTok, YouTube, all those links on prepzone.org. This is Luke with prepzone.org, owner, founder of, that company, brand, It's pretty much just me and the followers, right? But you're all a big family. We're all the Rise family. So I really appreciate you all in every possible way, but also appreciate y'all listening and sharing some of your thoughts here. And hopefully some of what I said made sense. Not all of you agree with everything, but hopefully that it cleared some things up. Got my point of view out there and maybe help shape yours, no hate to anyone, all respect to everyone. I wish everyone the best, happiest lives they can possibly hand, regardless of circumstances. Everyone, okay? Everyone. All right. I love y'all. Okay. Everybody stay safe, stay informed, stay happy, and maybe most importantly, stay kind. Okay. All right. All right. Love you guys. See you later. This has been the Prep Papi Podcast.